Miami Open Tournament. Director James Blake put a 31st seeded Alexandra Eala on center court, and the Women's Tennis Association's entire scheduling philosophy cracked under the weight of that one decision. This isn't a story about a young player getting a promotional bump. This is a story about an institution losing control of its own product.
Center court, which is just iconic place to play, and she's a great kid, and I just hope that things will go well for her. She's got to get calmed down. They had over 400 calls for sponsorships for her, so there's going to have to be a lot of no's.
And Eala, it's been quite a thrill ride for her this last year as well. I feel like last year at this event, it was a little bit of a coming out party where she had some great results coming from a wild card position as well. So I think the international interest in both of them is so high, and Miami being such a sort of a cultural melting pot with so many of the international, so much of the international.
To really understand what James Blake did and why Billie Jean King's response matters so much more than any headline is letting on, you need one number first: $5 million. That's the reported ticket revenue from a single Alexandra Eala match at the 2026 Indian Wells Open. One match, one day. A player seeded 31st, ranked 29th in the world as of March 16, 2026, and that match didn't happen in the final. It didn't happen in the quarterfinals, it happened early in the draw, and it set a single-day attendance record of more than 58,000 fans. Then Eala lost in the round of 16 to Linda Noskova, 6-2, 6-0. And what happened to the Indian Wells Stadium after that loss is the detail most people aren't focusing on. The grounds went, and this is the documented description, eerily empty. Not quieter, not a little less full, eerily empty. Indian Wells. Tournament director Tommy Haas saw all of it firsthand. Haas, who has spent years building his event's identity as the ___0 ___ watched $5 million worth of single match energy just vanish overnight. And Haas didn't direct his frustration at Eala. He didn't go after Linda Noskova. He went after the Women's Tennis Association, going on record to say that his biggest headache was the scheduling structure around the young Filipina's appearances. James Blake, watching from Miami, drew a very different conclusion. Blake didn't complain. Blake acted. Blake confirmed, on the record, that both Alexandra Eala and Brazilian wildcard João Fonseca would get what he called center court treatment and top billing at the 2026 Miami Open. And that's when the institutional fault line cracked wide open.
And the parents have to realize it too for themselves. This is new to them.
Okay.
And everybody's got to stay on course. It's not easy, but she's got to say no to certain things and stay humble. They know they're blessed, and just keep one ball at a time.
The title of this video uses the phrase, quote, "for." So let's get specific about what Billie Jean King actually went off about, because the documented record is far more precise and far more revealing than any sensationalist framing. Billie Jean King is the 39-time Grand Slam champion who founded the Women's Tennis Association back in 1973. King sat down with Eala for what the documentation describes as a quote 5 at the 2024 US Open. She said publicly that the quote 6 for the young Filipina. On the record, King isn't opposing Eala's center court placement. She isn't condemning James Blake's decision. What King actually went off about, speaking to BBC Sport at the Billie Jean King Cup Finals in Malaga, was the behavioral pattern she's been watching from the tour's top players. Players like world number 1, Iga Swiatek. King said it was, quote, 7 to sit and listen to players call the professional calendar exhausting and unsustainable, when those same players were turning around and voluntarily competing in off-season exhibitions like the Six Kings Slam in Riyadh, where the winner takes home $6 million. More than any Grand Slam title on earth pays out. King's argument cuts right to the bone. You can't claim the tour's schedule is trying to kill you. That's the phrase Carlos Alcaraz used publicly, while you're stacking lucrative exhibitions on top of it in your own free time. But here's the angle most coverage is missing entirely.
I even talked to her at the Junior Nationals in San Diego last year, in August.
When she was 14.
She was playing in the 18 and under, and she didn't win it. So it just shows you never know. But she loves that showcase court, center court, which is...
King's frustration with exhibition culture isn't actually a separate issue from the Eala controversy. It's the same controversy, just wearing a different uniform. King built the WTA on one foundational idea: women's professional tennis should stand as a legitimate, self-sustaining institution, not a sideshow, not a novelty, not something that needs special rules or gimmick matchups to earn attention. That's exactly why King called the 2025 Sabalenka-Kyrgios Battle of the Sexes exhibition insulting, and the detail that triggered that reaction matters. The court used in that match was reportedly 9% smaller for the woman, 9%. King's position is clear: women's tennis doesn't need a shrunken court or a gender stunt marketing frame to fill an arena. And this is where the Eala situation connects in a way nobody's fully spelling out. James Blake's center court decision wasn't framed as a gimmick. Blake framed it as a market reality. Miami is, in Blake's own words, a quote 11, where the Filipino diaspora creates what Blake described as an atmosphere that, quote, 12 Coco Vandawegi, on record, noted thousands of fans chanting, "That's Fight Alex," generating an atmosphere you'd normally only hear in late-round major finals. That's not a 9% smaller court shortcut. That's organic demand running faster than the institution knows how to handle. But here's where things shifted into territory the WTA can't easily walk back from. There's one institutional detail buried in the documented record that most coverage is skipping right over. The WTA runs on mandatory participation rules. Players are required to compete in 10 WTA 1000 events and 6 WTA 500 events every season or face sanctions. Those rules exist for a reason: to protect competitive integrity, to make sure top players show up, that fields are complete, that sponsors get what they paid for. Those same rules are exactly what Tommy Haas believes prevented creative scheduling around Eala's appearances in Indian Wells after she was eliminated. The structural architecture the WTA built to guarantee meritocracy is what produced the conditions for an eerily empty stadium. And when you look at the WTA's official response to the Eala commercial phenomenon, WTA Senior Communications Director Alex Pryor went on record with this: "We're quite strategic. We don't just say yes to everything." Strategic restraint. In the same window where one match moved $5 million in tickets, James Blake looked at that same empty stadium and said yes to everything. That's the real fault line here, not between Eala's fan base and the tour's old guard, but between two completely different answers to the same question: who exactly is the WTA's product for? Meanwhile, Eala herself is carrying a statistical pressure that makes all the institutional politics look almost academic by comparison. Going into the 2026 Miami Open, Eala is sitting on 390 ranking points she earned from her 2025 Miami semifinal run. The WTA uses a rolling 52-week system. Every point has to be defended at the same event a year later or it's gone. The math is brutal. An early exit in Miami 2026 would drop Eala from number 29 to around number 50. 3 months of progress wiped out. A run to the final could push her to somewhere between number 15 and number 18, and that's territory that changes sponsorship conversations in a very permanent way. Speaking of sponsorships, by March 2026, major brands were reportedly in what the documented source calls a clamor around Eala, and the most significant detail here isn't a contract signing, it's a reported conversation. Porsche, a long-standing WTA tour sponsor, reportedly evaluating a shift of its sponsorship from the WTA organization as a whole to Alexandra Eala as an individual, one athlete, pulling a major brand away from the very institution she competes under. If that report ever becomes reality, it would represent exactly what Billie Jean King spent 50 years working to prevent: a single personality becoming more commercially powerful than the tour itself. On March 16, 2026, and the same day Eala's ranking climbed to its career high of number 29, Alexandra Eala reunited with Miami Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra. The Heat organization put it simply, calling the two of them, quote, 17. And that same day, Spoelstra recorded his 700th NBA coaching victory. 2 Filipino representatives, 2 milestone moments, same day, same city. The cultural weight of that isn't manufactured. It isn't a 9% smaller court shortcut. It's precisely the kind of organic, cross-sport, cross-community energy that Billie Jean King built the WTA to eventually produce. And right now, the WTA's own communications director is being, quote, 18 about how much of it to capitalize on. As for Eala herself, she said publicly that Billie Jean King's mantra, quote, 19, quote, is the mental framework she leans on. She invoked it directly after that 6-2, 6-0 loss to Linda Noskova in Indian Wells, calling the defeat a, quote, 20, while pointing to its, quote, 21 on her growth going forward. The WTA founder's words, living in the mind of the player the WTA can't figure out how to schedule. At its core, James Blake's center court directive isn't really a scheduling controversy. It's a referendum on whether the Women's Tennis Association, the institution Billie Jean King built on meritocratic standards and professional equity, can hold itself together when a single 20-year-old from the Philippines is generating more commercial force than the rulebook was ever designed to absorb. Tommy Haas watched his stadium go empty and took it to the WTA. James Blake watched the exact same situation unfold and rewrote his own playbook. Billie Jean King is watching both of them. And her documented concern isn't whether Alexandra Eala belongs on center court. Her concern is whether professional tennis is building something that'll survive beyond any one player's career, or whether it's slowly sliding, gimmick by gimmick, exception by exception, into something that needs a shrunken court and a celebrity draw just to fill the seats. The 2026 Miami Open is going to answer a question the WTA hasn't officially acknowledged it's even being asked. Can an institution built to shield the tour from market forces survive being outmaneuvered by its own tournament directors for a player its own rules couldn't figure out how to handle?